Good morning. This is Andrew Kite, and this is In a Crisis Family Matters. And joining me today is Jenner Tomaska, who is the former executive chef at Next here in Chicago and a James Beard Rising Star Award winner. So welcome, Jenner.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So first of all, I want to make sure, how are you doing in the midst of all this? I know you had a lot of projects in the works. How are you holding up through the midst of all this COVID stuff?
It's a bit tough. At times like this, I don't like to kind of focus on the negatives. So I've really been trying to, place my time and my thoughts with the people that really need it right now. But overall, hanging tough, hanging in there.
So, one of the things that people probably don't have a whole lot of perspective on is how does somebody chart a career path to be a chef and all the hard work that it took to get to where you are today? What does that look like in terms of a career path?
It's tough. It's a lot of dedication. It's a lot of work. There is no real set path or plan, kind of in the hospitality industry. A lot of these, a lot of careers, including my own, are kind of happen organically. There's no playbook, there's culinary school and things like that, but it's not necessarily needed. People invest a lot of time and a lot of effort into the hospitality industry and in the cooking career. So it's just kind of tough to see how things are kind of shaking out and all that hard work kind of just being, put at the wayside of the road right now, because there's no clear answers at this point of how this is really going to shake out for everybody.
Sure. Well, how did you find your way to Next?
So I've only worked in the hospitality industry. At a young age, I started, cooking at 14 or 15. It's the only thing I've ever really done. I just kind of found that familia aspect of working at restaurants at a young age. And I think most kids need kind of structure that's very beneficial at a young age. And, the restaurant space was that for me. And then I kind of stuck with it from there. I went to culinary school after that, out east, and then came back to kind of venture in the fine dining realm, and landed at MK. And then through a mutual relationship of Dave Barron, who was the executive chef, via Eric Williams, I, started at Next I think it's like 10 years ago now. Wow.
So I would imagine, there's a lot of risk involved in that, and that there's not a huge safety net in the hospitality space. How do you eke out a living kind of in the midst of all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. The majority of employees are hourly workers, through the top down until you kind of get into management, and those management positions are especially in the fine dining room, are few and far between. So you can put a lot of effort and time into dedicating yourself into this craft, and there's no real support system if and when things like this happen. It's hard, because a lot of close friends right now are have been spending their entire life working to get to a certain point, don't really have any fail safe when something like this happens. There's not necessarily a system in place to kind of help support and keep these positions afloat because of just the way the system's been built.
Yeah. So obviously COVID's hitting everybody really hard here. So how's it hitting the people that and how's it hitting the hospitality industry?
I think the majority of people are really just staying afloat at this point. And that's probably via, to-go food. Unfortunately, the one thing I will say about the hospitality industry is I don't think it's going anywhere. So that I think that's why everyone kind of pivoted to do this to-go thing. And I think that's kind of why that's flourishing right now. I just don't know what the longevity or what the numbers really look like for that option. If everyone's jumping into the same market, and not necessarily doing the same thing because the food's going to be slightly different, but still jumping to that same market, that can't be viable long term. It can, hopefully it's getting people to a place where they can kind of prolong these expenses and costs, and hopefully some governmental loan will come into place that'll help kind of drag this out so they can kind of endure this impact over a couple months rather than just at a total loss, for these 2 months that it's been in place. But it's tough right now.
I'd imagine, you build your business model based on the fixed costs of the real estate and how much space you have. And now you have the government saying you can only do takeout, or you can only operate at 25% or 50%, and it completely messes up your business model. Right?
Yeah. You design your restaurant and the structure of that business model based around what you want your business to be. And you enter that marketplace, assuming certain expenses, obviously labor, as you just mentioned, real estate, what your rent is. If you're going to do $5,000 in sales a day in to-go food, there's no need to have $20,000 in rent a month. And I would assume a lot of these restaurants that are doing to-go food, had no idea that, this was going to pan out, or you would be using a kitchen or a workspace, in a different area or a different place. It's really kind of really screwed the business model up, which was already not positioning, restaurateurs or business owners. It wasn't a great model to begin with. The margins are so slim as it is. It's really kind of, bust or break even at this point.
Yeah. So, one of the reasons I created this podcast was try to help people. What are you doing to try to help people in the industry?
Right when this started, one thing I am working on my own project, but I really wanted to focus my attention to the people that needed it. I've been luckily enough positioned myself to be able to do that. So I did an auction, a live auction, to help raise money for employee relief and first responders via Virtue Restaurant in Hyde Park. So we did a live auction on Instagram to help raise some money for Eric Williams and his team down in Hyde Park. And not just as far as the financial aspect goes and helping that way, but I feel like being able to connect with people right now is really important. Mental health is an ongoing issue in the hospitality industry, and I feel like that needs to be highlighted at this point, and really staying connected with one another is an important issue that needs to be addressed, given the fact that we're, required to stay home at this point. And that's pretty much what hospitality is about, connecting with one another. And I feel like that's why a lot of people get into this industry in the first place. So, keeping in touch, checking on one another is definitely something that's important in times like this.
Yeah. One of the cool things that one of the families that I work with did was, even though, they have 12 restaurants, and even though they had to furlough 450 people, they actually added mental health benefits and continued paying the health benefits for all of those employees during furlough, because they knew that the mental health needs were going to increase. And they also paid them for 2 weeks from when the restaurants closed too. So, doing whatever little things you can to help. So, any other thoughts on how people can help people in this industry?
I think it's super important to help local businesses right now. Those are the people who need it most. Not the mainstream companies that you see day in, day out, but the small mom and pop restaurants and businesses that don't have access to large capital funds, that have these large backings, really need help. Getting through a month with no revenue has got to be extremely hard right now. And I think focusing and spending any any outsource of your income to those businesses are going to continue to long term help those people. And I think that's the most important thing that everyone can do right now.
Yeah, yeah. I fully support you on that one. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much for taking the time, and we're going to do whatever we can to help the folks in the hospitality industry. So thanks for taking a little time to share your story.
of course. Thank you for having me. Everyone stay safe.
All right. Thanks, Jenner.